The second step of the process is the examination of the coastal geography for relevant circumstances that might warrant an adjustment to the equidistance line. In Somalia's view, there are none. The coastline is entirely regular, without any anomalous features, and there are no offshore features that distort the equidistance line. The final step of the process is to assess whether significant disproportionality results from the equidistance line. As we have shown in our written pleadings, there is none. There is thus no reason to depart from or adjust the equidistance line. In Somalia's view, the equidistance line is the equitable solution that the law requires. Kenya, of course, would have it differently. It urges the court to depart from the approach followed in every recent maritime delimitation case by adopting as the boundary a line that follows a parallel of latitude rather than an equidistance line. Kenya's main argument is that Somalia has acquiesced in such a line. Madam President, Somalia has never agreed or acquiesced that the boundary should follow a parallel of latitude. Our council today will elaborate on what Somalia definitively showed in its written pleadings. Maritime boundaries cannot, as a matter of law, be established through acquiescence. But even if this were possible under the law, it could not be the case here because the facts demonstrate that Somalia never acquiesced to Kenya's unilateral claim that the boundary was the parallel of latitude. Kenya's argument that the court should adopt the parallel of latitude as the boundary, even if Somalia never acquiesced in such a line, to reach this conclusion, Kenya would have the court dispense with the three-step method. Instead of that standard method, Kenya, in its own words, asks the court to apply a quote, parallel of latitude delimitation methodology, end quote. This is not a methodology that has ever been recognized, let alone applied by the court, or by any other international court or arbitral tribunal. We cannot help but believe that it has been invented by Kenya, it is made in Kenya, for the sole purpose of justifying its claim. It's an obvious contrivance that puts the cart before the horse. It presupposes Kenya's desired outcome, and it is highly prejudicial to Somalia. As such, it fails to produce an equitable solution as the law requires. Madam President, Kenya has not only claimed an extensive maritime area on Somalia's side of the equidistance line, but has also sought to exploit it. In particular, Kenya has authorized exploration activities, including seismic testing and drilling a well in the maritime zone claimed by Somalia. Somalia considers that these activities in a disputed area violate UNCLOS and customary international law. In its written pleadings, Somalia called for full reparation, including compensation for these violations. But we have come before this court in a spirit of peace and goodwill, seeking neither vengeance nor retribution. In this spirit, we have decided not to insist on compensation for past violations of our maritime rights. Madam President, members of the court, it is now my honor to lay out the organization of Somalia's presentations. Following me to the podium this afternoon will be Professor Alain Pellet. He will address Kenya's errors of law on the issue of acquiescence. He will show that it is not possible to establish an international maritime boundary by unilateral action. In the absence of an express agreement or a judicial determination, the establishment of a maritime boundary requires, at very least, tacit agreement. This, Professor Pellet will explain, is an exceedingly high bar to meet, and one cannot be met in the circumstances of this case. Professor Philip Sanders, QC, will then show why the facts do not support a finding that Somalia acquiesced in Kenya's unilateral declaration of a maritime boundary. The record is replete with contradictions in Kenya's position, including statements Kenya made in oral hearings before the court more than 4 years ago. Members of the court who heard Kenya articulate its preliminary objections in September 2016 will recall that Kenya took the view that the boundary remained to be established, not that it had already been agreed or acquiesced to. The argument that Kenya made before you then is directly at odds with the argument it makes now that a maritime boundary came into existence by virtue of Somalia's acquiescence.